Time to abandon ship.
Oh no!
Here we go.
Can I persuade you to join us for a drink? It's a tradition.
Here, here.
Jar Jar, homie, my main man, quickly. Before the Separatists attack, get into the escape pod.
Hey! This is escape, then we're the pod.
Welcome back to Star Wars Escape Pod, and if you've never tuned into the show before, welcome here. I'm your host, Josh, and our co-host today is Blake. We're going to be chatting all about The Bad Batch Episode 11, as well as Star Wars Visions. We're going to be elaborating on it a little bit more at the end of the episode, as well as Dave Filoni's 6-inch action figure. We got some of that sprinkled in there. Yes, Dave Filoni is getting a Star Wars action figure for his character Trapper Wolf in The Mandalorian, and that'll be released at Hasbro Pulse Con later this year. Let's dive into all things Star Wars in just a moment. Stay tuned.
Another happy landing.
Welcome back, sir. Oh, you're muted.
Hi.
There you
Good
go.
to be back. Yeah, always good to be back on the show. And what a great episode of Bad Batch to talk about.
Yeah, this was such a highlight for me, this one, because we've been talking about whether or not this show is ever gonna go off to the side and do its own thing with other characters, which is something that Clone Wars did, and now finally Bad Batch is kind of doing that. I guess we spent enough time with the core group that they're feeling a little more comfortable that we can now finally explore other areas. Not that we didn't see them in this episode, but I thought that was pretty cool that we were able to do that finally.
Yeah, no kidding. I did find it very funny that it was exactly last episode of this show that we talked about wanting them to do that.
Yeah,
it's almost like Dave knew exactly what the fan base wanted and he timed it perfectly.
Well, I mean, let's not forget Dave does just stare at us do this podcast through the window of my place. I mean, he's always out there watching. Yeah, he's out there right now. I believe I see a hat. I see a hat. All right, let's let him in, shall we? All right.
Dave, you over there?
Hey, Dave, come on in. All right, come on in. Come get close to the mic. All right, it's all yours, Dave. Hey, what's up, guys?
Holy moly, I can't believe that Dave Filoni himself is in the house. We got so many questions for you. Dave.
Oh man, I've been waiting for ages to talk to you about this one. It's a good one.
By that, I hope you mean you weren't waiting for ages outside Josh's door.
I don't want to talk about it.
Fair. There's a lot of traffic out there. So Dave, tell me, how did you know that this was the moment to bring back Hera and show us a young Hera and kind of her aspiring to be a pilot and stick it into this show, which has only been about the Bad Batch up till this point?
Well, the first episode introduced an early young version of Canon, and we thought, well, how great would it be to have a young Hera and a young Chopper? And, that was the pattern with George's films, and that's the pattern that I like to stick to. Yeah.
I wonder then, are we going to see other young characters as well?
Yeah,
Maybe.
we might see a young Grogu at some point. He'll look the same.
I suppose he wouldn't look any different, would he, in this amount of time?
Not really. Maybe a young Trapper Wolf gets sucked into the rebellion by Cham. Who knows? We'll figure it out.
I mean, you guys do like to reuse your models and assets, that's for sure.
It's a huge money saver, You don't want Kathy knocking on my door in the middle of the night.
Or
just
Bob
because
Iger.
I overspent. Yeah.
I know
I
Bob
want to keep my
Iger.
job. Oh, Bob, he's a nice guy, but man, if you spend a dime over budget, I tell you, next day there's a phone call.
That's what I hear. He really rules with an iron fist, that
That's-
guy.
That's right. All right, well, good chatting with you guys. I'll be outside.
It's always a pleasure.
Dave,
Thanks for joining.
thanks so much. Yeah.
All right, see you guys.
There he goes.
Did he go out through your patio?
Yep, that's right. He has a ladder. He just climbs down from the to the top floor from my condo.
makes
and
sense.
Out on the street.
That's Dave. So he's
got
going against the stream. Real free thinker.
Oh man, he's a lone wolf. A lone wolf.
No trapping that wolf.
Yeah, exactly. No trapping that wolf.
Oh, I should have asked him about his new action figure.
Oh man. Okay, well we got to talk a moment about this. If any of you guys didn't realize, Trapper Wolf, Dave Filoni himself, is getting a Hasbro 6-inch action figure under the title of his character from The Mandalorian, Trapper Wolf. And I'm not entirely sure when it's going to be available, but the pictures look sweet. I think the only thing it's missing is his hat, but
yeah,
they went with the in-universe character of him, and I don't know. I still feel like it was.
They should have done it.
They should have done it because the only reason why he's even getting an action figure is because they were like, how cool would it be to do Dave Filoni's background character as an action figure?
That's so true. He had lines, so it's not like he's totally background.
Right? Yeah.
But, honestly, I really wish that in the show itself, when him and the other pilot get out of the X-Wing in Mandalorian, when they're season 2, episode 2, when they're landed right after killing the big spider and the cockpit's open and they talk to Mando, Dave should have put his hat on and then his hat would have been canonized.
Yeah, he should have.
Just sitting in the X-Wing, put his hat on.
Well, I mean, and cowboy hats aren't, completely out of the question. I mean, Cad Bane wears a cowboy hat.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Of a type. Yeah.
Does that mean if you want a canon Dave Filoni action figure, you have to buy both Cad Bane and Trapper Wolf and then combine the two?
That's right. You got to buy Trapper Wolf and stick Cad Bane's hat on him, and then you got Dave Filoni as a 6-inch action figure. But I mean, who wouldn't want that? I feel like Paul's son Hyung Lee's character in it was the one with the majority of the lines, right?
Yeah.
And most people recognize him from Kim's Convenience, but it was awesome to see him in that. He's not getting an action figure just yet, so I mean, I feel like they'll make it for sure. I think if Dave's getting one, but I feel like Dave got it first just because it's Dave, right?
Just because
like
Dave, yeah.
Why not?
Sure.
Why not add the hat in there?
Yeah.
You're making it just because it's Dave in the first place,
I'm sure people at Hasbro were like, "Wait, this is Dave Filoni." And everyone loves, like all these people watch Clone Wars for the last 10 years. They all know who he is and they all love him. And this was his like cameo debut.
Yeah.
If we make him as an action figure, everyone's going to buy it.
Right.
I'm sure that's what the boardroom meeting was.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. 100%. But yeah, super cool. I'm going to be in line to get that when it comes out for sure. I want a little Dave Filoni on my shelf,
Well, I hope it comes out before it's Friday.
Yeah, or knowing Hasbro and their announcements, scheduling and stuff like that, it'll be like sometime next winter or whatever.
They'd like to get the hype out early.
So early, yeah.
So that by the time it comes out, you've already forgotten.
Yeah, exactly, and then it's a surprise.
Yes,
they get to surprise us twice.
Yeah, they know.
They know.
They got all figured out.
Hasbro knows. All right, so. Yeah. Devil's Deal, the 11th episode of The Bad Batch, releases July 9th, 2021, as the seeds of the rebellion foment on an outer rim world, which is Ryloth. The Empire schemes to squash it. And this was a very interesting episode. I mean, we got Hera Syndulla, Chopper, pretty much the whole gang of the Syndulla family show up in this episode, and from the get-go too. It's not even like we didn't need to wait anything. Like Bad Batch wasn't even in it until like 3/4 of the way through, and
they basically had a cameo. They just showed up for like 2 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. And then we had Crosshair's small part through the episode, but this is the episode where I'm like, this is the template that I think this show works really well for, right?
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, I think it's funny because we were talking about earlier, we were thinking that this was the one thing they really needed to make it feel more like Clone Wars.
Yeah,
because Clone Wars had multiple different storylines going on simultaneously with different characters. And that allowed them, just like a film, like a modern day film, to follow the different storylines and kind of jump between them. Where as opposed to Rebels as well as Resistance, they didn't follow that same setup, and you're always following the exact same characters. And it started to make things feel a little bit more repetitive.
Yeah, for sure.
And you couldn't deal with time jumps as well because you had to always be following these characters all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. In my own opinion, I think Clone Wars is the pinnacle of any of the animation shows so far.
No bias there, though.
I'm a little biased just because it is. I mean, it is my favorite, but I mean, I think out of the three, I mean, you know, it's well, to be fair, I mean, Resistance really is aimed at a different age group. But when Clone Wars was first being established behind the scenes, there was actually an interview with George on the Jimmy Kimmel show, I think it was, and he actually said that Clone Wars was going to be targeted at 13-year-olds, and it was going to be a PG-13 show. And I don't know, it works differently with TV ratings with age and stuff like that, but it was more or less targeted for that age group. And by the end of the show, when it does get pretty dark, it's pretty clear that it's for a slightly older audience than Rebels. Yeah, and Rebels was on Disney XD. It was clearly for 7 or 8 year olds, right?
No, it's a good point. I think part of that is when they started the show, it probably was targeting 13-year-olds. And then as they aged, the show aged as well.
So you think it could be even more, I guess, on TV standards, if there's
I'm saying like it slowly got darker over time as the original fan base grew up.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, all the Star Wars films kind of exist between the PG and the PG-13 status. With TV, it's a different rating system, but yeah, it's like Clone Wars is definitely the darkest out of all the animated shows that there are, and in my opinion, it's the most enjoyable. And one of those main reasons is because we got so many different storylines. In like some of the favorited storylines out there don't even have the main characters or crew in it, right? I mean,
no, that's true.
Yeah, that's what it was able to pull off. And now this one in Bad Batch, I mean, this is something we've been talking about, something hoping that they would do or feel comfortable doing once we get to know these main characters as a core group. I feel like it's time to kind of move away from that and focus on these separate storylines that, you know, by all means use characters we've seen before, but like really kind of continue the legacy of Clone Wars and carry into this new timeline, right? This new spot in the timeline where there hasn't really been too many stories that have been told yet in the canon.
No, I agree. And I think this will be an excellent way to do it. Because one thing I really disliked about the following shows is it was very focused in, and I feel like you missed out a lot on the bigger perspective of what's happening. And I want to know a lot of the details across the galaxy of what's happening during the transition period from the Republic into the Empire, because I think there's just so many interesting stories there, because not everyone is just going to go along with it, and we're seeing that in this episode.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And you know, what I love so much about Ryloth and the Twi'leks is this is a story arc. Cham Syndulla has been a character with a story arc ever since season 1 or 2 of Star Wars: The Clone Wars, which is a long time ago. Like, you know, I remember this very distinctive line that he had when he was talking to Mace Windu, and it was the first arc that we ever met Cham Syndulla, and was his name Almfree Ta, the senator of Ryloth. Yeah. So him and Cham have always been at odds, because Cham has always felt like, you know, the senator has this comfy chair, rules Ryloth from a million miles away, and never really gets his hands dirty. And Cham is the one that's the leader on the planet that the people actually respect, and the one that really is doing everything he can down to like blood, sweat, and tears for his people, right? Which is why in this episode he's got so much leverage over the people of Ryloth. And something I've always remembered from those early Clone Wars episodes is a line that he says to I forget which clone commander it is, but it was the one that was with Mace Windu at the time. It's not the one that we see in this episode, it's someone else. But he says, how long before I'm fighting you, Master Jedi? And I think I really like that because Ryloth at this time is occupied by the droid, by the Trade Federation, and they're trying to kick them off the planet. And the Republic comes in to help, but Cham recognizes that if the Republic comes in to help, they're going to stay there and they're going to continue to fend off the Separatists from their now new border of territory that they've claimed in the war, right? And, to be fair, Ryloth is part of the Republic, but it's always been a very touchy situation with, even though they're part of the Republic, it's not like they want clone troopers walking around all over the place, right?
No, of course not, right?
So so it's always been a touchy area, and now we're finally at the point where the Republic has turned into something bitter, and Cham is he's a bit burnt out. I think I like this new Cham because the one that we met in the Clone Wars was very war centric.
Yeah, and eager to fight, I would say.
Yeah, eager to fight, and he's just lost the fight in him, right? He wants the people to just lay down arms, accept the fact that they've got peace, everything like that.
Yeah, and part of that I think is also, like he said himself in the show, that they did all this fighting and it was for this. So if they don't stop now, they'll be fighting for forever. Yeah.
At some point, the guns must be laid down and the fight's over, right? And it's
to me, that's one of the biggest differences. In that is, it's not bad to be armed as a country to defend yourself, but to no longer be at active war, right?
Yeah.
And to me, in his I actually agree more with his friend or Gobi more in that perspective, where surely the war is over, but why would they want to make themselves vulnerable to be attacked again and be defenseless?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Because as we can see, the Empire is essentially demilitarizing them by taking all their guns away.
It's exactly which normally when you do that, it's to a conquered nation that you conquered.
Yeah, and that's exactly.
They would take over and they would demilitarize you, so you can't fight back.
Right, exactly, and that's exactly what's happening. And Gobi sees that, but Cham doesn't, and it's because the fight in him is just he's so burned out with fighting, right? And he just wants there to be peace. Now that the Clone War is over, he's like, oh, there can be peace, but he doesn't realize, and I don't think he's at the point where he can actually accept the fact that time has actually come where he will be fighting his defender, because that's good. That's the second war that's inevitably going to come, right? And it's something that was hinted at his own dialogue early on in the Clone Wars. How long before I'm fighting the Republic? How long is he going to be before he's fighting the people that came to save him in the first place? Because now they're overstaying their welcome, and now those same people are demilitarizing them, taking their guns away, and basically putting Ryloth on a leash of relying on the Empire to defend them against nobody.
Yeah.
It was really cool to see a character like Hera show up as well in this situation that her father's been fighting in the Clone War for years.
Probably since she was born. She's
the Clone Wars lasted 3.5 years or something it was. And she looks to be about, I don't know, 13, 12 maybe. Yeah, about the same age as Omega, right? And so, yeah, she was even younger, like 8, 7.
Yeah.
Pretty young.
Very core years, though, for children.
Yeah. And not an age that many of them tend to remember too much of later on, right? And so, she's introduced into this concept of an empire ruling her homeworld. And, it's very interesting to see that Gobi, who's he's always been Cham's kind of best man as far as looking out for him goes. Gobi was like a high ranking, one of the people that Cham just relied on as a leader in the military.
Yeah, seemed to be his right hand man, right?
Yeah,
his lieutenant to
in the
general.
militia and stuff. Yeah. So Gobi's kind of the one that's still in his heart. He's still carrying the fight, and he's already fighting against the Empire in a way, because he's like, oh, well, we have to get rid of all our guns. I'm just going to get new ones. And so
Yeah,
he's been smuggling some weapons.
Yeah, not even 24 hours later.
Yeah, not even. Yeah, not even, right. And I like how Hera's kind of sucked along for the ride. She's already been doing some little jobs for him, spying on the clones and everything like that. And she's already playing a part in the rebellion from like such a young age. And it's really quite fascinating, just because she's a huge ranking, like she's a general. She becomes a general in the rebellion, right? And so like it's such a cool thing to see that she's already kind of heading in that direction
so early on in the beginning of the Empire, right? So you can already see, just at this age, there's already this spark that's been ignited of her hatred of the Empire. Yeah. Like the Empire's been around for less than a year, and they've already like accused her family of treason.
Right.
They arrested her for just flying a ship with her, I guess what she would consider to be like her uncle, or that's her dad's friend. She just wanted to fly a ship, right? She's like, she was going to walk away. And then Gooby, you get that wrong?
Goby. I was going to let it slide. Gooby sounds pretty funny.
As soon as I said it, I'm like, oh, that was wrong. Yeah, Goby. It's like, oh, well, you know, I was going to let you fly the ship. That's too bad.
Man, might as well call him Gooby, because like during the episode, he's a scumbag, man. Like
he is pretty scummy.
Hera was taking all the heat from what's his face, the Imperial guy, and he just doesn't say anything. Like you know, they're going,
take her away.
Yeah, they're accusing her dad and everything. It's like, this is all his fault. Like, you know, sending his daughter on a mission. Of course he's involved, and like he's already rebelling against us and this and that and this and that. And Gobi's just standing there being like, yeah, this whole thing was my idea, but I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to let this girl take the heat. Like what the heck is up with that? Like,
I mean, maybe he was thinking they're not going to, you know,
Goby.
They're not going to accuse a kid or punish her anyway. I mean, that's what the commander was saying there. What was his name? Commander Hoser. That's what he said, right? It's like, oh, it's just a kid. But they're like, no, we have to prosecute her to the full extent of the law of treason.
I just want to take a minute to acknowledge the fact that, you know, this is a Canadian podcast, and one of us has just mistaken the name Hauser for Hoser. Commander Hoser now.
That guy is such a hoser.
How did you get that from Hauser?
Should I call him that for the rest of the show?
Oh, absolutely. It's Commander Hoser now.
There we go. I got it as a Google.
You know, actually, weirdly enough about the Commander, I noticed that he didn't act like most of the other clones have been acting lately. You notice that?
I did.
He was nicer. He felt like an actual pre-Order 66 clone.
It's exactly what I was thinking, yeah, which was odd because all the other clones were like, no question, do the order, even if it's like assassinating children or whatever, or Jedi.
Yeah.
And he seemed to be really hesitant, and I don't know if it was just because he was getting orders from the senator, and he's used to serving with General Syndulla, right? Because they would have been fighting together for the last 3 years.
Yeah. It's tough to say because, like, you know, he's not modified as far as we know, and
he looks like he's an original clone.
Yeah, he looks like he's a reg, right? So I don't know. Who knows, right? Like maybe we'll see this period of time where the clones. I don't know how these things all work, right? So maybe at some point these things will start to lose their effectiveness after being already activated.
Yeah, I was wondering that too.
Anything could happen because they've already introduced the fact that they could dial up the effectiveness of these things, right? Because they already did it in Crosshair. So
maybe they slowly wear out over time, or maybe there's more that were defective in the first place.
Maybe, yeah, that's possible. Maybe it felt as if the way the episode ended, it felt as if we're gonna definitely see him again.
Yeah, he seemed like, to me, he reminded me a lot of Rex.
Yeah, he did.
And I wouldn't be surprised if he turns on the Empire.
Right. Yeah. Just another one. Yeah.
Yeah. He honestly, he looked very uncomfortable with the way things were going.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, for sure. He also didn't want to turn in Hera right?
No.
Because they're friends. Him and Cham have fought together for years, and yeah, it just felt something different about him. So I liked that a lot. They added that in. Not all of them are gone, I guess, as far as the chip goes. And
it's funny how
we'll find out.
It's never regular troopers. There's always people in commanding positions.
Yeah, I know, right? I know, right? It's just the trend.
No normies allowed.
I thought it was pretty crazy that the senator died. This is a character that has been around in the live action films. It's been around since beginning of Clone Wars all the way up until now. And Crosshair is the one to shoot him in the head. That was nuts. I did not expect that at all.
I did a quick research on him, and apparently it was alluded that he was killed in the Lords of the Sith book. Do you remember that at all? I couldn't remember from the
Yes, I actually was going to bring that up. Not the alluded to of his death, but that book, which does primarily take place on Ryloth. I was going to mention that. Yeah, because that novel focuses in on the Emperor and Vader, who are on Ryloth, and I think it's about 3 years or 4 years or so after Revenge of the Sith. So it's not too far away from the time period that we're looking at right now. Mm-hmm. And that is pretty interesting, though, that they alluded to that in the book, and now they've actually confirmed that death. Yeah.
From the bit I saw about it, I need to look in the actual book, but it sounded like it was a very minor retcon. But I would need to reread it. It's been so long since I read that book, I don't remember the details.
I can't remember it either. Yeah, it's been years since I read it, but it was one of the first. It was one of the first books in the first wave of canon novels in that first year or so that they were coming out. So if anyone out there is listening and you're like screaming at us through your headphones, like what actually happened, send us an email and let us know. Call in, leave a voicemail. Yeah, we got a link in the description. So yeah, I mean, the death of the senator, I liked it a lot. I mean, this is a character that we never see in Rebels. So,
and it was unexpected.
And it was unexpected as well. So yeah, it was, a very surprising death can sometimes be a really good death, like Werner Herzog's character in Mandalorian, the client is what he's referred to as. The guy with the medal, the German guy with the medal. And then, Moff Gideon just comes in with all his death troopers and everything, tears apart the cantina, and he just gets shot like 6 times and falls down dead. And I'm like, what the heck? Like, I thought this was the main guy. And,
right. All this lead up.
Yeah. All this lead up. And now he's gone. And it's like, this senator has been around a long time. Like, we've seen him in the live action films. It's almost like them taking a character exactly how they did with Bib Fortuna, right? Like, we've seen him ever since the original films, and then in one like post-credit scene of all things, and they just kill him off. And I'm like, dude, I mean, I liked it, but it was like that was surprising. And
yeah, it was a lot.
Yeah, it was a lot to take in.
It's pretty cool though. It got me wondering. It did seem odd that he personally went on the clone turbo tank.
Yeah, that was kind of weird. Yeah,
like he joined them to go and like accuse the Syndulla family of treason. You think that he would have like hung out in some like fancy royal place and just let all the clones whoever do the dirty work.
Yeah, here's what it tells me: the fact that he went on there, because I do find it very odd that he would get his hands dirty this one time, but I could see it happening if it meant he was able to accuse the Syndulla family.
Oh, he was excited, you think?
He was excited. Yeah, he wanted to be there. Yeah, he's had it in for Cham ever since season 1 or 2 of the Clone Wars. So, these characters have been at odds for a long time. So I think like if he had the chance to incriminate any of them from the family or whatever, he's going to go personally and oversee that himself. So
no, that's fair. And I was thinking, well, if I was a villain, I knew this was happening, I would be more in a position of power and just like call in on.
Right.
Like,
yeah. He's the kind of guy that would do that too.
Yeah, exactly. Just like call in like hologram or whatever and just tell them like, oh yeah, it's like you're all accused of treason, whatever. But he he's not the most clever of people. I don't think he's a pawn. He's definitely a pawn in all this.
Oh yeah,
So,
for sure.
Of course, he would go there in person and get assassinated. It just kind of makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. Did you notice anything through this episode that you want to bring up?
Hera had a French accent.
Yes. So that is the accent of Ryloth, yeah. And as we move forward through her in Rebels, she's lost that accent.
Yeah,
and
I don't think Star Wars normally does that. Normally, whatever accent you have, like that's your accent.
Yeah, so there was actually something about this, and I want to try and see if I can find it now. But because I remember there was an episode in Rebels where her dad does show up, and she does speak in. Yeah,
I vaguely remember that as well. Her because she goes back to that accent, I think.
Yeah, she kind of goes in and out of it, but in this younger age, we see that she's very much part of that culture still, and maintains it through the entire episode. But I mean, I feel like this was addressed at some point in one of the books. It may have even been A New Dawn. I'm not entirely sure, but at some point, I'm pretty sure within the canon, they have come up with some sort of explanation as to how she's lost her accent, or like why she doesn't have it anymore.
I mean, if she's on the run, I could see her wanting to hide her identity as well. Because
totally.
By the end of this episode, she has been accused of treason and is completely on the run.
Right. Yeah. And any Ryloth native to, any Twi'lek native to Ryloth, and not a Twi'lek on another planet who's been raised somewhere else. The ones on Ryloth were probably the ones all responsible for the uprising against the Empire, right?
Is that too? Yeah.
So yeah, her accent would give her away as a treasonous kind of person, which would make sense. I mean, you know,
you'd blend in better for sure if you don't have that specific accent.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I can see that being the case. I also get that the most likely reason is the voice actress doesn't have a French accent.
Right. Yeah.
Do you think it was the same voice actress, by the way?
It was.
Oh, it was.
I'm pretty sure it was Vanessa Marshall. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. I like that they did that. Sometimes when they go to the younger version, they'll change it up.
Chopper through the whole episode, you know, it was cool. It was cool to see Chopper. You know, it makes a lot more sense that he's just been in the family so long that she keeps him around, because man, he's annoying sometimes, you know, like he's now the only part of her family that she has left. In a way, yeah, for sure. Because right now her parents are in custody. So, I mean, that little droid means a lot to them, especially later on in Rebels and stuff. But man, like there's been times where he's like a huge help to a mission, and there's other times in Rebels where he just totally bought. He's a total. Yeah, and it's like all right, yeah, Chopper, you're messing their thing up or whatever, right? Because he's being a grump or whatever. And doesn't follow orders and whatever it is, and it's like, you know, why wouldn't they just get a more efficient droid? But I get it; it's a family heirloom.
That's exactly it, right?
Yeah,
it's passed down.
Yeah, passed down, the old family tractor.
It is also funny to think of that they should be one of the wealthiest people on the planet, but they have this total dumpster of a droid.
Yeah, totally.
There might be even more of a story to why it's that one specifically. Maybe Hera built him, like, who knows? Maybe
that's true too. I mean, and like all Twi'leks, I mean, it's a rags to riches story. I wouldn't say they're by any means like a incredibly
not a rich planet.
No, it's not, and I wouldn't by any means say that Cham is any more wealthy than the senator. I would say, you know, senator's probably loaded and Cham gets the short end of the stick on that one, but the people respect him because he's a normal guy.
I think there's a bit to it, because they showed a flashback of Hera when he was talking to Thrawn or whatever, and they showed some of their family art that's like ancient Twi'lek art. So there's got to be some level of wealth going on there.
There must be. I think towards the end of the war, maybe they get some sort of
No, it was
compensation
before because Hera was
before.
Yeah, Hera was. It was before I think even the Clone Wars. Hera, I think she was only 5 or 6. She seemed very young, like maybe 4.
Oh, and there's a flashback scene.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't remember that.
With Thrawn, yeah.
With
it's when
Thrawn.
she breaks into Thrawn's office to like steal that like.
Oh,
family
that's
heirloom.
right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the I forget what it's called now. It's the thing with the braids on the other side, right?
Yeah, that's the one.
Yep. Totally.
I don't know how I remember that, but yeah, it's very obscure.
I need to rewatch the show. Honestly, this has been it's been too long since I've seen it. But yeah, it's been so cool seeing these characters in this episode and getting them all. Bit of an origin story to Hera's joining of a rebellion and finally kind of putting the Bad Batch crew to the side a little bit, and so we can enjoy a different story with something else going on. They did find a way to bring them in with the whole weapons dealing thing going on with
it's
Gobi.
Funny. I almost would prefer if they didn't, but I get why they did.
Yeah, I get why they did. I would. I'm also in your boat. I would have been happy just with Crosshair, and even none of them. I would have been fine if it was. They managed to work in Crosshair pretty well with all the sniping stuff, but yeah, the Bad Batch thing, I was like, okay. Aside from the fact that it's like a weapons deal, it makes me wonder if they wrote the episode first and decided to work them in after, or if they based the entire episode around that weapons deal.
Maybe. Or maybe the idea was they wanted Omega and Hera to be friends.
Maybe. I feel like something's going to come out of that.
I think so
for
too.
Sure. If I look up the title of the next episode, which will be episode 12, it's a bit of a spoiler, but it is called Rescue on Ryloth.
Oh, what could it be about?
Yeah, what could it be about? I wonder. So Rescue on Ryloth is going to come out next Friday. And what are we thinking for this one?
Bad Batch are going to get the call. They're going to come in and they're going to save Hera, who's on the run. Because the Imperial, I think it was talking to Commander Hoser and was saying she can't be far. Like, get after her.
Yeah,
because she's only on a speeder. She doesn't have flight.
Yeah, and
Chopper's at the wheel, so that's not going to be good either.
So never a good thing. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It makes me wonder, though. It gives me hope about this Boba Fett Cad Bane face off. It gives me hope that we're going to see that again. The fact that they just made an episode that didn't have the core group in it for the whole thing, right? Like this gives me hope.
Honestly, after this episode, it got me thinking, all those characters we kept re-seeing at the beginning, I wonder if we're going to get a story arc for each of them separate from the Bad Batch.
Maybe, yeah. Maybe we'll get an episode with just young Kanan, showing up and meeting Hunter again. That's
possible. They have the model, so I wouldn't be surprised if they brought it back.
All right. And, Kanan has a thing in for clones, so it also wouldn't surprise me if they didn't do that, just because, it's evident to him that clones are always just bad. Right. Yeah, they're evil. He doesn't trust them. So it wouldn't really make a whole lot of sense if they had him meet trustworthy clones like the Bad Batch.
Oh my gosh. What if he meets Hera and they don't know they meet each other?
It's not gonna
Could you
can't
imagine?
happen. Just
I wouldn't be surprised.
The entire novel A New Dawn just rendered completely uncanon. Yeah, I don't think they'll do that, but
I wouldn't put it past some story group, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, like, I guess so.
You're like, let's not forget, George Lucas wanted us to meet young Han Solo as like a toddler.
That's true. He was supposed to be in Revenge of the Sith, and that entire subplot got cut because otherwise it would have been like a 6-hour movie. But honestly, dude, like I've always said this. I said this to Diego as well during Clone Wars talk, but I would have happily sat down and watched a 4 to 6 hour Star Wars movie. Like,
I don't know if I want Han Solo in the prequels though.
I mean, here's the thing. If it works as a movie, I don't care how long it is. I could sit there and watch it and I'd be fine.
Come on, Tui, we gotta get to the Falcon.
Yeah. I don't imagine him being well, I don't know. He must have been like 12 or 13, about the same age as Omega and Hera right now.
Is he that much older than Luke?
He's a couple years older than Luke and Leia.
12 to 15 years older?
I think in real life they're quite an age gap, like 10 years or something, isn't there? Pretty sure. But I'm pretty sure in the movie there's supposed to be a decent amount of years because Solo takes place 5 years after Revenge of the Sith, and Luke and Leia are born in Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah.
So 5 years, and he's
like 17?
Yeah, like way older.
It's like 12. It's making it weirder and weirder.
So yeah, I wouldn't have minded it, honestly, but it was a strange concept, and I like Solo a lot better than the concept of having him in Revenge of the Sith.
Agreed.
Right? And
like they already snuck in Chewbacca. I really don't know if we need the whole cast.
Yeah. Seeing Chewbacca was cool, and getting that origin of Kashyyyk, and finally got to even see Kashyyyk in the first place.
Yeah,
something that wasn't the holiday special.
Still canon.
No, it's not.
I still love that scene in the holiday special where they finally get to Kashyyyk for Life Day, and they're on one of the treetops, and there's only one stormtrooper there for whatever reason, and he like drops his blaster. Yeah. And Han Solo like fakes to get it, and the trooper like tries to go quicker and like slips and just falls out of the tree.
It's honestly the only best part of that episode.
It's so good. I rewatched that scene like 15 times.
Someone needs to make a GIF about that.
It's super good.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It's the best part of that entire thing. It's cut so bad. I love it.
All right, let's are we there's one more thing to bring up. It's non-Bad Batch related. Do we cover everything we need to do for this particular episode?
I just thought it was neat that the Empire is already building a factory on Ryloth.
Yeah. I mean, seeing the early stepping stones of the Empire building on the backs of slaves, essentially.
Yeah, and we know like there becomes a big rebellion, and I think. Does Ryloth end up becoming basically just like a slave planet?
Yeah, I believe Ryloth ends up enslaving a lot of the Twi'leks, just as they do with the Wookiees, right?
Wookiees, right? Yeah, Kashyyyk.
Yeah. So, man, those Twi'leks, they're always getting it rough.
I hope the Bad Batch go to Kashyyyk as well. I would really like to see that.
That would be cool. That would be really cool to see. Man, that would be awesome. Like, because we've seen the Wookiees show up before in the Clone Wars, but to actually have maybe another story of going there again and maybe rescuing some like Tarful or something. I don't know, just something.
Just see that transition. See Wookiees in cages being shipped off. Like, it's pretty dark, but that was the canon.
And it's close enough to Solo that down the line. If we were to hit a season 2 or 3 where it's like a year or 2 before Solo, I would not be surprised if we got the episode where Chewbacca gets captured by the Empire and ends up on Mimban or whatever, the planet that...
I was just going to bring that up because when he was captured on that planet, it didn't make sense to me that he would be there. So I feel like what must have happened was because last time we saw him prior to that movie was on Kashyyyk and Revenge of the Sith. So I'm wondering then if the Empire starts slave trade, which is canonized from the books on Kashyyyk, Chewbacca would have been enslaved on Kashyyyk, put into slavery, probably escape, and then my guess is he got recaptured and put into the cell on Mimban.
Or he escapes before he gets enslaved and ends his way up onto that planet. Yeah, because you're right. It makes no sense for the Empire to bring a slave to a different planet only to keep him in a cage, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so he's there in the first place, then gets captured between the scenes kind of thing. And it would make sense for there to be an episode or something of Bad Batch. Maybe I mean, because apparently this Sid person has so many connections to the Republic. It's crazy. I don't know how the Empire hasn't gone after her yet, but whatever. It seems as if that's, she's the link that the Bad Batch has to all these recognizable faces, right? And so I would not be surprised if Chewbacca, Tarful were one of them and called for aid. Call for a pickup kind of thing. And Bad Batch is the crew that actually is responsible for getting Chewbacca off Kashyyyk in the first place.
Yeah,
that would be cool.
Wouldn't be either.
That would be a pretty cool story. I mean, a prison breakout kind of episode. That would be, I'm down. Yeah.
So I think I guess it's not canonized now, but in the EU, they captured a lot of Wookiees to build the Death Star. But I think now it's just all Geonosians.
Well, in Rebels, I think it was the first episode, they did have a moment where the Rebel crew rescues a bunch of enslaved Wookiees. So in canon, I mean, Wookiees have been used as slaves to help build things for the Empire. I don't know if the Wookiees specifically are for the Death Star project or if that's just Geonosians and robots and stuff. But regardless, the Wookiees are at some point in the canon slaves of the Empire. So yeah, I'm sure we'll see it happen with the enslaving of the Wookiees. Yeah.
One more point on that, not to drag it on, but in it's the trilogy of novels that replaced the Thrawn trilogy post Return of the Jedi, Empire's End, I think. So.
Oh yeah, at the Aftermath trilogy.
Yeah, that's it. One of the main villains in that book series is a Wookiee slave trader on Kashyyyk, who works for the Empire.
A Wookiee that works for the Empire.
He's a human, but he sells Wookiees on Kashyyyk.
Oh, yeah,
and works
that's right.
for the Empire.
Right. Yeah, I do remember this. There was a whole liberation of Kashyyyk in that book.
Yeah.
And in I think it was between the second and the third book, and Han Solo and Chewbacca helped do it. Right, they helped free the slaves on Wookiee on Kashyyyk.
Sounds about right.
I was about to say Wikipedia, and I was like, "That's a website." All right, let's chat. Let's chat briefly about Star Wars Visions, just because it's new. It's a new headline that many people are buzzing about, and just wanted to quickly acknowledge that I already did a light speed regarding this particular subject, but have you had a chance to check out the trailer for Visions yet?
I have not. This is the first I've heard of it. Please enlighten me.
All right. Well, you can look it up while I'm chatting very briefly about it if you want. It's Star Wars Visions, as we all know, was the anime project that Lucasfilm was partnering up with a couple different anime studios for to produce a series of shorts that would exist telling various different tales in anime form. And more recently, we had a preview from the Anime Expo Lite, I believe it was. And we got a bit of a look into this particular project and what they're referring to as an anthology series. And one of the crazy parts about this is they've managed to secure quite a few different companies. I think there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 7 different production studios doing 9 different shorts. Some of them are doing 2, others are doing 1. And the biggest title production company that they managed to get was Production IG, which is also known to have made Ghost in the Shell. So they got some pretty big names on the roster for Visions, and some of this stuff looks really cool. I mean, a lot of stylized stuff in Star Wars came from Japanese origins of some kind.
Yeah, a lot of samurai influence in Star Wars for sure.
Yeah, so it feels natural to have Star Wars stories take place in anime form, and I'm surprised, honestly, that so many. These things just haven't happened yet. I mean, people love the 2D Clone Wars series because it has such a stylized art form.
Oh man, I love them. So honestly, they're some of the best animation I think I've seen, at least throughout all the mid 2000s.
And I mean, now this is fresh anime. It's like the same style as other anime, but it's just like brand new and it's Star Wars. So pretty cool stuff. The only thing that kind of has a lot of people puzzled is that it's clearly not intended to be canon, which this makes it the first thing aside from the ongoing Old Republic video game
and the Star Wars sequel trilogy. Just kidding.
It's the only thing that they've intentionally released, knowing that it's not going to fit into the existing continuity. And
kind of bizarre, if I'm honest. It's gonna be confusing to people, and I know that like officially quotations, it won't be canon. But for a lot of people, it'll be like canon to them, right? Like it'll be in their mind. This happened.
Right, exactly. On StarWars.com, there is a page I'll link in the description. It's also linked in the Lightspeed episode, which addressed this as well. But the second point on that page is titled "Star Wars Vision Storytelling Didn't Have to Fit into the Timeline." In developing the series, Lucasfilm made the decision to let creators tell the stories they wanted to tell, whether they featured established or original characters without a need to tie into the larger chronology. We wanted to give these creators a wide creative berth to explore all the imaginative potential of the Star Wars galaxy through a unique lens of anime, James Wu said.
I wonder if... So you know how Kathleen Kennedy was on record saying... I can't remember how long ago this was, but you said like the issue they have with Star Wars as opposed to Marvel is they don't have any reference material. I wonder if this is them trying to make their own reference material. I mean, we all know the EU exists, so it's nonsensical, but I wonder if this would have been like spun off of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, maybe it came from that idea. It's possible it just came from the idea of, I mean, we know that Marvel is launching their What If series later this year, which is an animated 2D project, not anime, but animated. And it's telling alternate universe stories of what if, basically. What if Peggy Carter was Captain America? What if everyone was a zombie? What if Thor was actually T'Challa? Crazy stuff like that, right? And it's telling stories with a twist. The stories from the MCU that we've seen in the films with a twist, right? So I feel like with Marvel, even though there is such this massive franchise with even more movies than Star Wars has, and a huge consistency thing, right? Like the MCU is Marvel movies in a consistent storyline, right?
Yeah.
So as far as continuity goes, there's no better example than the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I feel like even if a franchise like that can make the decision to make a show like this with telling an alternate story that doesn't fit into that chronology, I guess they were like, hey, we can just do it at Lucasfilm as well. And
there's one major difference to that, though. The cinematic universe for Marvel is only live action. There's no animated stuff that fits into that.
That's true.
And there's no books, no comics, no anything. Well, so where Star Wars is all media is canon.
It's all multimedia. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Where Marvel already has comics, whatever, coming out, and animated shows as well that aren't canon.
Yeah, there's a clear separation with Marvel as to what's MCU and what isn't, because we just look at all the live action stuff and go, oh, that's MCU. And then, and then the comics are a completely separate thing. With Star Wars, you're right. It's a multimedia wide canonicity. So books, comics, audiobooks, video games, everything, like it all plays into this larger canon story. And it is a bit of a curveball having something like this come out, because we then start to puzzle. They made such a big deal about putting this Legends banner on everything, right? When they wanted to make canon stuff again. And it makes me wonder, like, are they caring less about that? I mean, we've seen recent launches with republished artwork on brand new books with a brand new Legends banner saying Essential Legends Collection. We had Heir to the Empire be re-released, Shatterpoint, a Clone Wars novel, all Legends books. We just had them re-released not that long ago, even one of the Darth Bane books. They launched with new artwork, new banners.
here's the bitter side of that, in my opinion. Or like,
Yeah.
that could be a Disney decision to resell these and make more money by selling these books to kids that have only known the new canon.
Of course. Yeah.
Like,
Of course. Yeah.
that's probably an angle somewhere.
No, the angle of making any form of Star Wars content is always at the end of the day to make money on the franchise. But because, we can't forget who owns it now. But it is curious to me that they approached this and thought, let's just give Star Wars as a license to these anime companies and just let them have at it. Just so that we can see because I'm not massively into anime. All right. Like, I know some people listening might be huge anime fans. Don't tear me apart for not being an anime fan. It's not that I hate it. It's just, I just don't watch a lot of it at all. Although I have seen a few, and it's not entirely my cup of tea, but here's the thing about anime. Sometimes it can be really out there, right? Like super crazy stuff. And sometimes that's an amazing thing if the story ends up working really well. Other times, for a lot of people, it's just a little too much, right? With Star Wars, it's like, yeah, it depends on the anime. With Star Wars, it's like this license and this visual art form and this style of the universe fits so well with Japanese art in the first place that I felt like they were like, we just want to give this license to anime creators and have them create the best form of content for that audience, like for the people who enjoy anime. And even people who don't like anime or just haven't seen it or not familiar with it, but who are Star Wars fans, will still enjoy it because it's Star Wars stuff, right?
That's true. And also just think about all the new fans that are going to start liking Star Wars because they were originally anime fans and checked it out. Oh
yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I mean, this could be one of two things. Firstly, it could be a birth for them to consistently tell more stories in this non-canon format, right? Like they could go forward and say, we're going to approach this other, like we're going to make a random comic series that just isn't canon, and we're just going to do some crazy stuff in there. Like we've seen it happen in back prior to Disney. We saw that happen a few times, and it's maybe we'll see it again. Until the more recent announcement, I thought this entire time that Visions was going to be canon, and it's not. And that surprised me a lot, and is not necessarily a bad thing. This is a good thing. Like I'm fine with this, right? Because it gives a lot of potential to have these stories made. Some of the biggest complaints about some of these canon novels is that they've been too restricted with what they can do.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And this is partially what I was saying earlier, is I think part of it is they're now creating new content that they can then steal from to make new films and stuff. Like it'll inspire canon things.
Yeah, absolutely. It'll inspire things. Yeah, it's a possibility that we could see Visions come out, people love it, and then they could take one of those characters and roll it into a form of canon later, right? So effectively making a new bin of source inspiration to draw from for canon stories later on.
And sorry to make this conversation so circular, but I think that might be part of the reasons why those non-canon books are coming back, is there's probably certain things in those specific books that they're looking at recanonizing.
Yeah, totally. I mean, we have seen it before with Thrawn and I mean, Dave is a big advocate for leaning into the EU quite a bit for bringing things back, right?
That's exactly what I'm thinking. I wouldn't be surprised because correct me if I'm wrong, but 3 of the books that they republished were the original Thrawn trilogy.
They are republishing the original Thrawn trilogy. One of them that's already on the shelf is the first one, is Heir to the Empire, but they have announced that the other 2 will follow.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's what I heard. So I'm just making sure. That means, and this is something I've been kind of playing with the idea of, is Dave has set up that timeline of the end of Return of the Jedi within Rebels and stuff and Mandalorian to actually create the Thrawn trilogy in the new canon.
Right.
Thrawn was gone for the original trilogy. Mm-hmm. He was way off in the Outer Rim We know that from the ending of Rebels.
Yeah.
And they've kind of alluded to him being back with Ahsoka in Mandalorian, which means he could be coming back with that massive fleet and get all of the separate Imperial factions to all work together and make an actual enemy against the New Republic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is what happened in those books.
Right. Right. And it's not like we have an incredible amount of books and stuff after Return of the Jedi anyways, because they approached the sequel so left field that there's not a lot of material bridging those two trilogies, which is kind of why the sequels feel so disconnected from everything, right?
Yeah, I agree with that.
And so like these live action shows could create this really cool bridge of telling these events that aren't going to contradict anything later, and they're going to be good stories regardless, because, you know, people have loved Mandalorian so far. But I mean, the potential to bring stuff out of Legends and stuff has always kind of been there for Disney to play with. It was there as a suggestion from the beginning, and it's always been there. And fans love the EU, and like, you know, there's so many of my favorite stories come out of the EU, because I mean, you know, let's not forget that this is the Star Wars that like you and I grew up with. Like,
yeah,
it's
true, because there are huge gaps between shows, right?
Yeah, like we grew up with knowing that Jason and Jaina Solo were Han and Leia's kids. Like,
yeah, and then Ben Skywalker was Luke's with Mara Jade.
And then Anakin Solo was the third child that Leia and Han Leia and Han had, and you know, we know that Chewbacca was crushed by a planet, and you know, like the Yuuzhan Vong War. Like there's so many things that come out of that Legends non-canon timeline that are resonating with nostalgia for so many of us, right?
Yeah, and like one thing that I thought they were going to do and they never did was Jason and Jaina. Jason turns to the dark side and Jaina has to like turn him back, which was such a cool storyline. Like I think they were twins or close siblings.
Twins. Yeah,
twins. Yeah, where one turns to the dark side.
Yeah.
Which is a fascinating story.
Yeah, and it's, you know, and some elements of that have kind of made its way into a resemblance of Ben Solo a little bit, but I mean, I guess we're kind of getting pulled away from the topic. But if they were to take Star Wars Visions and just kind of have it there, right, just as something, like, you know, I'm fine with that. There's a lot of people complaining about it, but like I'm okay with having stories outside of the canon, and I'm a big advocate for canon stuff, but or just not even just canon stuff, but like consistency, right? Chronologically consistent stuff. And I mean, anything that they can do to just give fans a lot of stories to be happy about, and then to even just draw from those things, like, that's just good storytelling, right? I mean, it's a mythology, and you know, what's a mythology if we're writing it like a rule book, right? Like,
no,
it
it's
should
true.
be,
it gets boring and everything becomes, what's the word I want?
Stagnant. I mean, everything just starts to feel the same, right? Then it becomes a formula and something that isn't a creative anymore. It's something that, you know, they're like, we got a formula for making Star Wars stories, and this is it. And, you know, a select few people start to do these things. And this is why I like High Republic so much, because like they're bringing in all these best authors making Star Wars books and stuff, putting them in a room and being like, let's make a whole new era. And then later on, we're going to make a show in that era. And then who knows what else is going to come our way, like video games, movies, whatever. But that's why the Acolyte's going to be amazing.
That's why everyone really liked KOTOR when it came out.
Yeah.
Same reason. It was Star Wars that felt like Star Wars in a different era where they could really do whatever they wanted.
Yeah, and they had excellent writers on that as well. So writers who are fans, you know, and that's kind of the key, I think, is having people who absolutely love Star Wars make Star Wars content. And part of the Star Wars Visions thing is not a requirement. They said that people working on it was a Star Wars fan. But it just so happens that all these people that work in these anime studios are huge Star Wars fans. They love Star Wars.
I believe it. Yeah.
And I think we're going to get some really, we're going to get some cool stuff.
I believe it. Yeah. What's the release date for that? Did they announce it?
Yep, September 22nd on Disney Plus, everyone. So make sure you tune into the show, and we're going to be, of course, chatting about that. I guess it'll be the next thing that we talk about, even before Book of Boba Fett. We'll be doing an extensive chat on Star Wars Visions as we get those released, and if they, assuming they don't release them in bulk, I imagine it's the typical Disney Plus thing where it's week to week on a Friday. But we'll see. All right, thank you guys for tuning in to the show. As always, it always helps us if you can share the show with a friend, drop that 5-star rating, or leave a review. Even just one of those 3 helps us out. If you've never been to the show before, don't worry about it. Stick around for a while, tune into a variety of episodes, and even scroll back, check out some of our old ones, see what we're all about. And we love to improve the show. So if you have any feedback, please send it through at swescapepodcast@gmail.com. Our Twitter is at swescapepodcast. Our Instagram is at swescapepodcast, and all of them are listed in the description of this episode right below, as well as any relevant links that might have something to do with today's episode. Make sure you check it out, as well as the World Vision link to donate at their website. We love to hear from you guys, so you can also send in a voicemail at our SpeakPipe address, which is also down there as well. Lots of stuff looking forward to on the show. We got only a few episodes left of the Bad Batch, and then we won't be too far away from I guess it would be the Book of Boba Fett. Until then, we also have lots of High Republic news. Wave 2 has dropped, lots of new books on the shelf. We're going to be reviewing those down the line, maybe in about a month or something like that. Get everyone digesting those before we start spoiling it all for you guys. So it'll give us a chance to read it as well. Keep looking out for those What Happened episodes. We got a few coming your way, as well as an episode regarding all things about the Force and various different types of Force powers. That'll be exciting. May the Force be with you guys. We'll see you next time on Star Wars Escape Pod.